Welcome to another edition of The Invisible Hand on the Fireground. This is episode 11, which is going to be the third part of a four-part series on the Father's Day fire. With me today, I have Battalion Chief Brian Kearny from the FDNY. He also covers in 6th Division. And just as a side note, I was editing this, and I noticed that there's birds chirping in the background. So it's kind of cool. We got birds in the background. And I hope it doesn't bother you, but I thought it added a little something to the show. People from?
All my grandparents are from Ireland.
I know.
So County Mayo and Westport is where the Kearnys are from.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because this Kearny's up here as well. So, anyways, Brian, I had so far on this podcast, I spoke to Joe Vasilla from 116 Truck, Lieutenant Brendan Manning, Mike Milner from Rescue 4, and now I'm going to talk to you about the fire. And like I told the other guys, I was actually working that day. I was in 58 Engine, and I heard the box come in. I went back to the firehouse, and myself and John Calamari, we were kind of buffing it. And I walked out of the room, I came back, and John had told me that the building just exploded, and my blood just ran cold in my body because I just had heard that progress report, 3-line stretch, trucks are opening up, and all I could think of is all you guys were inside. And I knew 117, which you were a fireman, was down the block. So I assume that you were 117 would have been there, but that didn't really work out the way it would have worked out, right? Is that correct, Brian? You guys weren't first due?
No, we should have been first due, but the whole first alarm assignment was on a hazmat run about 2 blocks away at a food store, whatever, it's not there anymore. Bleach, unknown odor, whatever it was. And then they put a hazmat response on that. So the 49 Battalion was out, hazmat 1 was there, 288 was even there. I'm not sure if rescue was on that box, possibly, but the whole first alarm assignment was there, and it wound up being nothing. And this other box came in while we were there, and 117 had a covering officer. Never trust covering officers, right, Dan? That includes chiefs. And we had the backup. It was Father's Day, Sunday. So it was backup to the backup chauffeur. Myself, we had a rotator that was going back his last tour. And I had a probie with me, who's now a lieutenant covering up in the Bronx. So the box came in, and we were like, the chief was there, Chief Sealy, who's retired. Like, hey, there's another box on. The senior guy just said, get on the rig. And we wound up going. So we wound up being second due. And I wasn't happy about that. I was on the irons. I switched with the guy in the rotator from the OV to the irons. So it was me and a probie and a covering lieutenant on the inside. And I wasn't a happy camper about being second due.
Right. So this happened in 2001. And I distinctly remember, I just remember that day so vividly because I had cousins staying with me from Ireland, and I just remember them being there. It was June of 2001, and Brendan made an interesting comment about that fire. He says he called it the forgotten fire because it was right before 9/11, and when this happened, I was devastated that we had lost 3 guys because Brian Fahey was in my probie class. I sat right next to Brian in probie school, and John I knew from the neighborhood. I didn't really know Harry that well, so for some reason, this was very impactful, this fire, but how much time did you have on a job at the time?
I had about 8 years on.
8 years. Wow. So you had some time. Yeah.
Yeah. Still, I guess the middle of the road in the firehouse, but you mentioned this is the forgotten fire. We had a line of duty death right after this also in August, Garumba in Staten Island.
Yeah.
So that he truly was the forgotten line of duty death.
His son is in probie school right now, and I saw the
Is he?
name. I saw
Oh,
the
excellent.
name, and I asked him. I said, "Do you have any relations on the job?" He says, "Yeah, my dad." And I say, "I knew it. I remember."
Good,
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
good. Yeah, he was the forgotten one.
yeah.
Uh, I I used to remember all the dates. I want to say it was 14th. You can check that whenever the date. Maybe it was later than that. He had his funeral, and then September 11th.
Yeah, his
So
funeral was on a Saturday. I remember his funeral was in Staten Island.
I can't
So
remember.
yeah, that time period between June and September, I just
Yeah,
remember it so well.
I know I wasn't able to make the funeral. I was not physically up for it. So I know I wasn't playing the pipes, and I wasn't physically able to get there. So
Yeah.
even if somebody drove me, it wasn't up for it.
I give you so much credit because you're in the pipe band, and just for the audience, people listening, the pipe band started in my firehouse in 17 truck in 1962, I think.
Yes, 62.
I was at this point in the conversation, Brian and I got a little bit sidetracked, and we started talking about the New York City Fire Department's pipe band. So it does have some relevance. So we'll talk about the pipe band for just a short bit, and then we'll get back to the Father's Day fire.
There's no way. It was horrible. We had 343 guys, 341 firemen and officers, our chaplain, and then 2 EMS paramedics, fire department EMS paramedics, and then 1 fire patrol guy. So 344, and we didn't miss one funeral. We made them all. There might have been 1 or 2 guys at a funeral, but we made them all. I want to say there were a couple down in Jersey. There was 1 or 2 up upstate, way upstate. There was 1 or 2, a few in Connecticut, and maybe 1 New Hampshire, Vermont. And I even want to say there was 1 down in the Carolinas.
So Brian, I would say that the 340 some odd funerals, but some of those, when we found the body, we had a memorial service and a funeral. So it was actually, you guys almost probably did near 400 services at some point.
Yeah, we have a number somewhere, but nobody ever likes to really look it up. But it's
Crazy.
Over 500 services, if you can believe that. So when they found, even if they didn't find anything of the brother that died, the family had a memorial service, because they were saying, listen, they're being tortured enough. They'll have a memorial service in the church somewhere. Their family come out, but then when they found a part of them, and that's all they were finding, so then they had a funeral. And some families had 2 funerals, 3 funerals, or memorial services. So, a couple of guys, their ex-wife might have had a funeral or a service. Then their current wife had a funeral or a service, that type of thing. We're in, this is new territory for us. So for some of the brothers, and whatever it was, didn't care if he had 10 services, we were there. And we did not miss one.
So that just kind of talks about the kind of people you guys are, that you just go above and beyond at all costs.
I always say the guys in the band are the ultimate overachievers on the fire department.
Yeah.
So and the current guys, the roster is about 100 guys. The retired guys helped us out immensely for the 9/11 funerals. They came up or came down wherever they live in half the year, and they came up, and we had a little over 100 guys taking care of all the funerals. And we did it geographically. So since I'm out in Long Island, whatever was going on in Long Island or Queens, we kind of did that, because we were one day. I remember the day. It was, I don't like to remember it. It was a Saturday before Thanksgiving. So November, whatever it was, the Saturday before Thanksgiving. We had 23 funerals to do that day. 23. That's as many, as the NYPD lost total. 23, we covered them all. And it was a Saturday, pretty sure it was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Families, wanted to have, their Thanksgiving, be thankful that they had a service. And if they found, their loved one. But that day really sucked, because we would make, wherever the funeral is or the service, 3 guys would make the beginning of the service at point A. Point B, 5 guys would go over there. Point C, 2 guys would go over there. And then we would, emails were just beginning in 2001, if you remember. It was mostly phone calls, and everybody didn't have a cell phone in 2001, if you think about it. So then we would, just because you did the beginning of one funeral or service, you didn't do the end, because the end of point B would be happening before the one that you're at. So you ran over there, and maybe just you and one guy from the C, D, and E funerals would go over there. So we were just moving around, constantly moving around, unless you knew the guy, unless you worked with the guy, type of thing. And I didn't go into the churches anymore, because I just didn't, unless I knew the guy, work with him. And, I worked with and knew about 60 guys, I guess. It wasn't a good time.
No.
And the job took us off the chart. And so we were detailed to the brand new ceremonial unit. So we were working 6 days a week. There were funerals, memorial services, 6 days a week. And every now and then on a Sunday, the families would have one. So, whatever it is, so they were all covered.
So this is what I guess what I was trying to get at, Brian, is that this is the kind of people that you guys are. That this is it's a spirituality in the sense that we honor our dead. So, going back now to the fire on Father's Day, I remember listening to the report that the building just blew up, and thinking to myself that this is now prior to 9/11 now, right? So I thinking to myself, this is going to be the biggest thing ever.
Yeah, it was.
In the
It was the
FDNY.
worst day. Yeah, we lost 3. That was horrible. I wish 9/11 was only 3 more, right?
Right. So, but the fact that we lost 3, if I looked at the pictures, I'm looking at the pictures now, like of the devastation, and it looks like something from World War II, like like a bomb.
I got a glimpse, after they found me, of the building through the smoke. We were, I guess, exposure 1 were on the building, right directly across on 14th Street. They originally sat us there, all the wounded. And it looked like the Oklahoma City bombing building.
Exactly.
That's the only thing I could, half the building was gone, smoke. I just, because that was a year before. I even forget when that was. And that was a horrible day for the country. And then they moved us around on Astoria Boulevard, because they thought the building was going to collapse even further after the fact. I think it did a little bit. And then I couldn't, I didn't see anything else of the building after that.
So,
and I only remember bits and pieces, to be honest.
So just get back to them. Your second due. So the second due truck, you're responsible for the floor above, which there were some apartments up there. You had the irons, you had a can was the rotator. You said a Proby or
no, he was the
rotator?
Proby. I was on the OV, and the rotator, Richie Scrow was that was his last tour. It's Father's Day, Sunday. What can happen on a Sunday? Come on. So I got the covering boss to switch. I said, put him on the OV. He hasn't been on the outside. He's going back to an engine. I'll take the inside with the Proby. So, and also, every position didn't have a radio. So we just got a radio for the OV and the OV had the OV and the can. We just got radios for them. So I had a radio. And if I was on the inside, I never had a radio. So that's how every position now has a radio. Maybe the young guys can't believe that, but when I got on in 94. It was just the boss, chauffeur, and roof guy that had a radio. And the engine, it was just the boss and the chauffeur had a radio. So, but whatever. So we switched, and we went into the building, and there were apartments upstairs. There were people upstairs. So on the way up, I was not saying encouraging things to the covering lieutenant, who I'm friends with now, Billy Schellinger. Nice guy. He retired from that fire. There were people up there, and we had the new tool for the that just came out a couple of months before that was the thermal imaging camera. Remember the old ones? They were as big as a shoebox, and they were good for taking windows at the very least. So I had that with me. If you had Mikey Milner on, you could ask him about him trying to take my tool, the camera.
We're going to talk about that because Mike is going to be on this show as well. And
all right, good. Tell him that he's retired. No more taking tools, Mike. Trying to take other people's tools. He didn't take it because I got it back from him.
Well, you're a big guy too, so you're a little intimidating too, bro.
I was a little skinnier back then. I gained a little weight, I think, since then. But yeah, we were second due and wound up getting the people out there. 2, 3 people living up there. To be honest, I can't remember.
So to bring up, so what happens now, from what I gather, is that I spoke to Brendan. Brendan was around the rear. They're trying to force the door. The door was the door from hell. They had to use the Hearst tool. The guys are on the side, John, Harry, and Joe, taking windows, trying to work on the windows. 116's inside team, Captain Horn, Patty Horn, they were trying to make their way, bring 288 into the cellar. They couldn't make it their way down, and you guys were above. What were the conditions like on the floor above? Did you feel like it was like, like this is gonna, was it gonna go?
You know what? It wasn't. As I said, the civilians that were up there, we got them out. A couple of ladies, young ladies, 2 or 3, I can't remember. Nothing really that smoky when we first got up there, and then started to get a little smoke, and we're like, where the heck is this coming from? So we opened up behind. They had a little kitchen, and we'd open up behind the kitchen, just where the drain pipes were for the sink, and the smoke was coming up there. So the boss was telling, I guess, Bill Seelig in the 4-9, the chief in the 4-9, little smoke there. And then, enough smoke came up that we said, okay, let's take the windows, let's open the windows, and this way it'll vent a little bit and we're not using our mask as much. So I took Kenny Freed, my probie, he's a lieutenant covering in 50 engine now. And I said, come on. And I showed him, I said, he was about to go through the window with his hook. I was like, listen, why don't we be gentlemen about this? We'll look like aces. It'll be a home run for the people. Just unclip the windows. Take the windows out. We unclip them and we set them to the side. We don't break them. Make a full opening, and we look like all-stars. So we did that throughout the whole apartment, and didn't break a window. And then the smoke was coming out in a hallway type of area. And we're like, why it wasn't coming up? So we opened the wall up right as you walked in the apartment, and a lot of smoke was coming up there. And we're like, this doesn't make sense to us. It wasn't, we didn't know the layout below. The layout below was the hardware store. So like, this doesn't make sense. This is it's not a barrier wall. It doesn't go over. Something's going on here. I didn't see any people saying they saw different color smoke and all of that. I didn't see any of that. But it started to get charged up a little bit. So the boss is like, yeah, let's open the kitchen again. So we opened up the kitchen a little more, same amount of smoke, not much. So things weren't making sense to us. So then smoke kind of dissipated a little bit, or the windows helped. And I'm sitting there with Kenny, the probie, and the boss, and we're hearing the hearse tool, because the old generators had a certain sound. And we used it a lot in 117 with the highway and the bridge there. We had, for us, we had a good pin job or a bad pin job for the civilians, let's just say. No kidding, once a week. Just the way people drove back then, and the cars weren't as good, and most people didn't wear their seatbelts. And the yellow tow truck, tow trucks, they were the flavor of the day, and they caused a lot of accidents. We're right on the Grand Central, so we did that. So the hearse tool, we're like, what the heck is going on here? Why are they using a hearse tool? We didn't understand. I didn't hear it on the radio. Again, the radio was new to the position, new to us. Maybe I wasn't listening, but the boss didn't even know, and he was listening. So we're sticking our heads out the window now, trying to see what's going on. And the building was like a V shape. My fingers right, a triangle, should I say? So we couldn't see around the building, no matter which window we went to. But we saw a bunch of guys congregate in the alleyway. I'm calling it, the side entrance or the back entrance, whatever it's defined as. I don't know. I guess that's where Brendan Manning was. That's where Richie Scroll was, the OV from 117, and a bunch of the guys. So then a couple of the brothers from Rescue 4 were looking around. So Mikey Milner, and the boss said, all right, let's go downstairs, see if we can help him out. I said, okay. Milner came over, grabbed my camera, and I was like, no, that's my tool. Oh, I got to look here. I said, well, tell me what you want. And I got because I put all my tools on the kitchen table to go do the windows with the probe. So put them down. There was nobody else up there but us. So I got my tool back, and the boss says, all right, let's go downstairs. And then that's when the building blew up.
Right.
The apartment had nice parquet floors, little squares. I remember that because where I grew up, we had a parquet edging around the floors, and it looked nice. So I remember the parquet floors, and then I remember the parquet floors coming up, and my mind just couldn't wrap my head around it. Why are these floors coming up? I wasn't falling forward, but the floors kind of came up at me. And that's basically what I remember. And then the window that we kind of just took the frames out, clipped them out, I went out that window. I went out backwards. The probie hit the wall between the two windows, and the boss was in the kitchen, I believe, and he hit the ceiling. I guess the floor came up under him, and he hit the ceiling with his head and injured various body parts. The probie, Kenny Freed, the rest of the country, rest of 117 was on, they went to the hospital, everybody, except for Kenny Freed. He hit the wall. He's a probie. He's a young guy, better shape probably than everybody. He stayed, he was working up and down. He worked that night. They probably should have had him go sick and get things checked out, but he said he felt fine. And then I was out the window at that point.
So this is what it says, Brian. I'm reading the report from Vinny, from Jay Jonas. He says, firefighter Kearny from ladder 117 was thrown out a window. He landed in the rubble with his head down and his legs in the air. So all I knew is I was buried. Joe C, he's the senior guy, still the senior guy in 4 truck. He lives on 14th Street. Nice Italian family lives down the block. He heard the commotion. He said he heard the fire, he smelled it. So him and his cousin, I want to say, or family member, they had a big thing for Father's Day. His folks were around. That's where he grew up. So he was buffing a fire, and I didn't know Joe. I know him now. He's my savior. Just talked to him the couple of days ago. He'll be at this memorial ceremony on the 17th. He said he saw me come out the window,
and then he saw me get buried. And then he said, he said I was like an ostrich. He says the only thing sticking out of the rubble, the bricks, was my butt,
Wow.
my best feature. So, so he goes, we were wearing bunker pants at that. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
So you wouldn't have probably seen me. He said, you know, my black butt with the bunker pants was sticking up. So him and his cousin came over and dug me out. And I was between, in all the pictures, Joe Vasilla was next to the white car, I think.
Right.
And Harry and John were a little further up from that white car that was parked there.
Yeah.
And I was a little behind the white car in the rubble. Accordingly, I have no idea.
Right.
So Joe C and his cousin dragged me out, and they wound up putting me with the rest of the people on the building directly across from it. I didn't know Joe. I didn't know who grabbed me. I mean, that's a long story. A guy in the band was from Ford Truck. Al Schwartz, he's retired. He called me up weeks later, July, maybe August, and say, Joe C pulled me out. Again, that's another story. I went down to go visit Joe C after 9/11 in October, before Christmas. And I finally met him there, my savior. So he pulled me out of the rubble. So he was watching me.
Brian, I'm looking at the pictures. It's just mind-boggling that only 3 died when we could have lost probably 30.
Well, you know what? I was talking to my boss, the covering lieutenant, Lieutenant Schillinger, and he was saying, again, you know, I got hit in the head. I got over 200 stitches here going back, and really bad concussion. So I don't remember much. But the Billy Schillinger, the covering lieutenant, said there was a skylight somewhere. I'm assuming in a hallway. I don't know. I don't remember. I believe it was a hallway. And he asked there were about 5 or 6 guys on the roof at that point. You know, count all the companies up. Everybody sends a guy to the roof. So they said they were near the skylight at some point, or they weren't near the skylight. I'm a little hazy on it. But all I know is Billy Schilling just said, hey, to the roof guy, I said, can you look at this? I believe it was a skylight. And he says, yeah, no problem. And he says, if you have to open it up, whatever. So according to 117's roof guy, all the members on the roof kind of moseyed on over to that section because there was nothing going on. There's nothing going on in the roof. And is, you know, if they were trying to door or whatever they were going on in the basement or the cellar, roof guys have nothing to do with that because they're operating on a roof. But all the guys kind of moseyed over to where Lieutenant Schillinger asked them to look. You know, they weren't doing much. And then the building collapsed right where they were standing 3 minutes before that. So the 5 or 6 guys would have fell through the building down to the sidewalk if they were standing over there. So yeah, a lot of things, 3 things went wrong, horribly wrong, but other things might have went, I guess, right or lucky. I don't know I don't know what word you want to use.
This story about the roof, I was going to ask you about it. I'm glad you brought it up. Is like the 5th time that I've heard this now in different fires. I've heard 2 in Chicago. I have my own experience with it. I've seen 2 of them personally, and now I'm hearing your story. So, I don't know, Brian. I know that we lost 3 firefighters, horrible, but I think the Angels were very busy that day because I read you. I couldn't believe it was you. I'm like, Brian. I said,
yeah, my 15 minutes of fame.
I just relieved him the other day, and it's like, here you are. I forgot you're in 117, and you got this whole story. So, Brian, thanks for taking a little time to talk to us. I want to thank you, and that wasn't a forgotten fire. We still remember it. It's just it was just overshadowed. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and fine. Rightfully so. We lost so many of the brothers on 9/11,
Yeah.
and I with both days. Today's a nice day. It's nice and cool, whatever. High 60s, a little cloudy, but that Father's Day was a beautiful day. It was, I don't even know, 70s. It was cool. We weren't sweating. Same thing 9/11. It was a nice, beautiful Tuesday morning, right? So bad things happen at other times too. Uh, um, uh, the bad other Sunday fire we had was a snowy day, but Father's Day was a nice day. I shouldn't have been working either, but I just came off. I twisted my knee, and I was out on medical leave 3 weeks. My knee still hurt, and I was going on vacation. I think the next set or 2 sets after Father's Day, and my son was born in November, so he was only 7 months old at the time. My wife was complaining, rightfully so, why I didn't get somebody to work for me. I said, I'll be home by 6, 7 o'clock. I'll get out early, see if I can get out. We'll have a barbecue then or whatever. My first Father's Day. So I didn't even see my son. I saw him in the morning, but I didn't see him the rest of it. I didn't see him for 3 days after that. So,
Wow.
but
Well,
yeah, I don't know. Sometimes beautiful days don't end very well.
right.
So,
Well, anyway, and you continue to do God's work with that pipe band, because I know that they're always a comfort to the families. You
yeah,
showed up. Yeah.
somebody, you know what? I'll steal a line from somebody. That the widow said, the wife of the fireman or that we're playing for, she has no reason to smile on that day. And one of the last ones we played at, a couple of family members came over and said, "Oh, the wife, the widow, smiled," and she has no reason to smile that day, but she smiled because of all the brothers there lined up in their Class A's and the band. There was a little Irish history with the family, and so that was nice. That there's no reason for the widow to be smiling that day, but we brought a little comfort, as you said, and the brothers standing there, the hundreds, the thousands of brothers that are standing there, as an honor guard for the family. It's just, that's what we do, right?
We do. All right,
That's
Brian.
what we
Well, I know the anniversary's coming up, the 17th, so my prayers are always with you guys.
Yeah,
And,
that day's gonna suck.
It's gonna suck, but you know what? I'm glad you were here to tell us about it. So that was Brian Kearny, who was a fireman back in the day when this happened in ladder 117. They should have been first due at that fire, and because of that supermarket, a little chemical leak, it threw the whole assignment out of whack, and they wound up being second due. And as you can hear Brian talk about it, it still kind of bothers him a little bit that, they should have been first due, and they weren't. They were second due. But, the way it all happened probably, in essence, saved a lot more lives than would have, had they not had that, whatever, chemical spill in that supermarket. So anyway, that was our third segment for the Father's Day fire, and thanks again for listening to the Invisible Hand on the Fireground. And until then, we'll see you next time, and be safe. Next week, we'll have Mike Milner from Rescue 4, and he's going to tell us the final version of the Father's Day fire.